Yes, this is Pastor Allen from Truth Empowerment Church coming to you today from the city of Jerusalem with a special rapture message. I'm here in Jerusalem, sort of taking in the sights and as well as the spirit of the times and where we are in biblical prophecy. And right now I happen to be at probably the most contentious spot in the whole of Jerusalem, not only Jerusalem, the whole of the Middle East, the whole of the world, actually. I'm outside the Damascus Gate, which you can see over here to my right. Was a entry to a trade route to Syria and Lebanon and in olden days, and right next to it there is the Sulamite Gate built by Saladin, that was added later after the Ottoman Turks invaded. And beyond these walls is also the Dome of the Rock, the Mount of Olives. We also have the Via Doloroso, the Walk of Christ, the crucifixion to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, believed to be the site of the crucifixion and the burial of Jesus. But this area is so very, very critical because beyond these walls, Jesus will land on top of the Mount of Olives at the end of the tribulation. And not just by himself, but with all raptured believers who went up to the beam of judgment, received their rewards, became priests with Jesus, commissioned to come back and fight with him, to overcome the enemy, to overcome the forces of darkness, as we see. And they are manifested in this area, of course, with the Palestinian movement. Unfortunately, the Palestinians inherited a legacy from one of their imams, one of their chiefs, back at the end of World War II, who made a pact with Hitler and continued to promise to continue on the legacy of the Nazis. So what we have here is modern-day Nazism, only is the Islamic version, which is more a war of 1,000, as they say, 1,000 cuts and slashes, not mass murder. But they are preparing for mass murder, you can believe that. And when Jesus does come down, it is said that when he comes, he'll land on the Mount of Olives. He will also come through the Lion's Gate and through the Damascus Gate here with us in his army. And of course, he will be with the word of truth, speaking the word of truth. He will be acting as a man of war, and then the Spirit, with just the utterance of his word, of the word of truth, he will destroy all the enemies of Israel, and they will be all concentrated right in this area. It's amazing when you look around, you see that you almost wonder where you are, because it's almost like there's more Muslims than any other group. We're actually on the edge of the Muslim quarter. In the four walls of the city, there's the Muslim, the Christian, the Jewish, and the Armenian quarters. But just in this area, it seems like it's almost like more like Saudi Arabia than it is Israel. And you wonder, how can the Jews feel at home here? It's almost like they're strangers in their own country, and it's a really terrible shame. But anyway, Jesus, I was saying, Jesus will come back. He will, when he does return with us, the raptured saints, he will begin to sift through the groups here into two categories. They will be the sheep and the goats. The goats, of course, are the ones that are against Israel. The sheep are the ones that are loyal to Israel. They'll have a special blessing. And the goats will be marched off, well, as he describes it, they will be separated like the wheat from the tares. They will be gathered in bunches like briar and burned in the oven. There will be judgment from God. And there's judgment already all through this city, because God considers it an abomination and an absolute blasphemy that the land is divided in the first place. You go up to north to Galilee, You go to Bethlehem, you go over the Jordan. I mean, places that were traditionally Israel and which God has promised as his covenant people for all time are now completely in the hands of the Palestinians, and you have to show passports and everything. Now, this is an abomination to the Lord, and he's not going to withstand it forever, but he will take care of the problem with the separation of the sheep and the goats, as I said. And yes, this area is under judgment. It's interesting to reflect on how I feel right now, taking the pulse of the city, the spirit of the city, of God's city, as we know. It's a little bit like being in the eye of a hurricane. There's a calmness and a stillness, in large part, partly because of all the Jewish army officers who stand around at every corner with machine guns, submachine guns, ready for any outbreak of violence. So in a way, you feel very secure, very safe in this city, and I feel good about that. But it's, like I say, it's like you're in the eye of a hurricane. It's a very still spot, but and all the world's events, are swirling around in the outer walls of the hurricane, getting ready to destroy this place. And you think about how judgment has come on Israel in part, but it's because of his unfaithfulness to the covenant of God, but more on the Palestinians. As Peter said in one of his epistles, he who is not in the Son is judged already, because he has not received the Son, the author of life, and as manifested in Jesus Christ. But America, thinking of how I left America and what I last saw there, America is finished. I'm sorry. You talk about judgment. There is judgment happening right now in America. As you know, there's one calamity after another, a very special judgment on the place, one hurricane after another, and God actually, I believe, just lit the spark that burned the state of California to the ground, because he ordered the winds. He controlled those winds, and that was part of my prophetic message, that there would be fire. America would be consumed with fire, earthquakes, and nuclear attacks in the near future. So that has all come to pass with the California fires. And I see America as sort of like there's in a state of not only moral decay, there's like in a state of moral and spiritual quicksand. It's like the more they struggle to overcome their difficulties and their morass, their moral dilemma, the more they sink. In spite of even in spite of the efforts of Mr. Trump, who I think is a good man making a good effort, he promises to try to unite the Palestinians and the Arabs here, the Palestinians and the Israelis here, and with a two-state solution. We've heard that before, and I can tell you right here, it's impossible. These are not trustworthy people. They are not honest people. They're shady in many ways. They live. You put them in their areas, they become a ghetto, and it's not. It's because of any curse of God that comes down on any people that reject His people and the covenant people. So. Not a good scene. So unfortunately, I would love to say that America would come out of this and somehow be an aid to Israel. It will not. I believe quite firmly that about halfway through the tribulation period, America will be judged. America will be utterly finished. Some Bible scholars, some prophetic authors will tell you that America is going to come in like wings of an eagle, come in to rescue Israel when at the time that Jesus prophesied in the Olivet Discourse, when they had to come down off their roofs, not take anything out of their houses, and then run to Edom, run to the Jordanian desert. Some say that, well, there's wings of eagles. Well, there'll be wings of eagles, but it won't be America's. They won't be America's wings. There'll be some other way, either maybe aviation, maybe symbolic of some other way that God will deliver His people out of Israel and protect them and hide them from the wrath of the beast of the Antichrist. But it won't be through America, because just as in Revelation 18 says, America will be gone. It says, "Come out of her, my people." I cannot impress the message loudly enough to you. Come out of her, my people. Because no people will stand, because the nations will stand afar off and say, "Woe, the merchants no longer deal with her. There's no more trade, and she'll be destroyed in an hour." And people have to be gone. Sell all you can, sell all you have, move to another country. If you in here, Israel here, as in many countries, you can have a 3-month visa. You can stay here, not work, and then go back when it's done and renew it again. Some have longer visas. This is what we must do. We must sell everything we have. We must plan to exit America. It's in moral decay, and like I say, in spiritual quicksand. The more it struggles, the more it goes down, and because it's broken its covenant with God. It's an ungodly place. It's a land of idolatry, shedding of innocent blood. There's the race issue. I mean, you talk about the problems here. This is the battle between good and evil, between light and darkness. But there's no such thing as racial discrimination here. There's no such thing as racial injustice here. That's something that only America is unique in not being able to solve, and having all these hundreds of years not being able to overcome that, which is a great sin against the greatest commandment, to love thy neighbor as thyself. So there, it's a land of idol worship, and I would say that America's greatest idol is itself. Patriotism is like the golden calf of America. Whenever things get bad, whenever things go haywire, they just wrap themselves in the flag. Patriotism is the go-to idol of America at this time. Some people, there was a gentleman here who asked me a question we were talking about the rapture, and he was saying that, why do people go in the rapture get off scot-free? Why do they get to just be whisked out of here while everybody else has to suffer? I got to think about it. It's very interesting. Jesus said, "Walk ye in the light while it is day, because the night comes when no man can." Not walk, but work. Work during the day while there is light, because the night comes when no man can work. And that, I think that's a pretty good explanation for why people have to be taken out of during the rapture, because work will be impossible. Those who sit around and want to say they're going to be the church in the rapture, what are they going to be doing? They're going to be totally unproductive. It's not going to be able to accomplish anything. They'll be just sitting on their hands, helpless. The work is for the proficient and the advanced, and those who have been faithful to the Lord and who have done His job and have been true to His faithful and fulfilled their word and their loyalty to Him. And besides, the rewards in the Bema judgment are not going to be based on works. They're going to be based on things like faithfulness, being true, being loyal, being honorable, holding the truth in righteousness, and not corrupting their message, not corrupting the message of the gospel. And so it's going to be on those inner qualities, those moral qualities, more than any kind of act, because as Ephesians says, it's not by works lest any man should boast, but we are all saved through the grace of Jesus. So that's why we need to be going into the rapture. That's why all the church members, all in our congregation, we need to be preparing to leave. It's not going to be hard. We can take the internet, we can take the world with us anymore. There are no more borders in the world, because we live in a totally interconnected world, and we have our iPhones, we have our computers, and you can virtually set up anywhere. I will be in Virginia Beach for a little while anyway, but we will be an internet church as often as it needs to be, because we have the means and we have the people, and we must have the message. We must have the message of the rapture. Because that's where the troopers go. That's where the most loyal and the most productive members go during the rapture. So America will not step in, unfortunately. America does not have a single solitary prayer left, unfortunately. You'd be safer to live in Israel. It's a dangerous place in some ways, but on the other hand, it's under God's protection. It is God's city. They can feel the presence of God here as never before. You go down to the Western Wall, the sign says, and it is true, I believe, that this is God's presence always resides there, and I have seen in this city, it is truly blessed. It is amazing. It will be under God's protection. Wherever you go, give consideration to moving to Israel. Give consideration to move to any place. Like I say, do the visa program, move overseas, whatever. Anyway, it's still a beautiful day here. There's the Damascus Gate behind me. The crowds in the markets are coming up. You get a view of the city streets. It gets very noisy around here. We're going to be touring a little bit more, and then I will be back in Virginia Beach with further messages. And God bless you all. Thank you so much for your interest and your subscriptions. And shalom from the holiest city on earth, from God's city, Jerusalem. I'll see you in the States very soon. Thank you. God bless you. This is Pastor Allen from Truth Empowerment Church.